Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Films and Stuff. I'm Ethan, joined as always by erstwhile Pete. Hey, Pete, good morning to you.
How are you?
Everything is great. Big episode ahead today. And it's because I think we're reviewing a highly anticipated show that both you and I were really looking forward to, but maybe we were a little bit unsure of whether it would meet our expectations or if it would let us down. Is that a fair characterization?
I think that's a fair characterization. It's also a show that I question the necessity of.
I agree with you. That's a very good point. I also wasn't sure that it was something that was missing in my life, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I didn't think it added, or prima facie, I didn't know or believe that it would add anything to the mythos. You know, spoiler alert, we're talking about HBO Max's Penguin.
Yeah, Colin Farrell.
A very unrecognizable Colin Farrell. I know we talked about this when we did the Batman review.
Yeah.
But man, like 100% credit to the costume and props or whatever department,
Yeah,
the costume and makeup.
prosthetics.
He doesn't even come close to looking like Colin Farrell. And Colin Farrell is a handsome, tremendously handsome man.
Yeah.
And if you take one look at Oswald Cobblepot on this show, you wouldn't see the resemblance.
The thing is that I always wonder, many, movies, have a very famous actor, but the amount of prosthetics that they put on make them unrecognizable, right?
Sure, yeah.
And I always wonder out loud, like The Mandalorian's a good example, right? The Mandalorian, but for one or two helmet removals, you never see Pedro Pascal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I always wonder when you have kind of a star, and in this case, Colin Farrell is kind of like an A-list star. When you have a star who's so make-upped or prostheticed, right, that you can't even recognize them, do you need the star, or can you get along with kind of like any working actor, right?
But to be fair, this really goes to show you how good of an actor he is, right?
Yeah, I think in this case, I've really seen how fantastic he is. And I think that Colin Farrell's made, at least in my mind, a bit of a resurgence over the last few years where he used to just be kind of I don't want to say like a pretty boy, but I mean, he was definitely hired for his kind of like Irish swagger,
charm,
right?
and good looks.
And the last few things that we've seen him in, he's actually been like fantastically deep in his roles, right?
Very much so. And it's not to say that he wasn't known for that, right? Like he did in Bruges. He also had a very deep role in that.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was like a blockbuster level movie.
Yeah.
Whereas The Batman, that's a pretty high profile movie.
I noticed it in Sugar. Remember we watched that on
exactly.
It was on Apple TV Plus, right?
That's right.
And I thought that was an incredibly nuanced role, much different than, usually you see him in like The Gentleman or, something else where he's playing someone who's a little bit, broody. But I mean, definitely it was in Sugar that I saw him as someone who was a little bit different,
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the Penguin, because when you and I were growing up, the Penguin, I think, was very cartoonish, right? Like I think of like the animated Batmans, and there was the Joker, the Riddler, the Penguin.
He was
Dr.
one of the
Freeze.
less serious villains.
Yes. And then I can't remember the Adam West Batman, if there was a Penguin.
There was.
The first real Batman for me was, the Michael Keaton Batman, right? With Kim Basinger.
Danny DeVito.
Exactly. So they made Jack Nicholson the Joker, and they made him a very, very cartoonish Joker in a way, right? And then Danny DeVito as kind of a cartoonish, Penguin. And even using Danny DeVito as a Penguin just kind of like insulted the stature of the Penguin, right? They didn't even make the Penguin like a very, as I recall, like a very
Yeah.
serious villain.
So he was cartoonish in the sense that they tried to make him a little bit more nuanced, but he wasn't that nuanced.
Yeah.
And also, it's Tim Burton. Tim
Yeah.
Burton was a little outlandish. He was a little
Yeah.
bit more comic book-y, as it
Right.
were. He was a little less grounded.
Yeah. Who was the chap who made the Joker so famous?
Joaquin Phoenix?
No, before Joaquin
Heath
Phoenix.
Ledger.
Yeah. What Heath Ledger did for the Joker, I think Colin Farrell has now done for the Penguin. I'm sure that in the next 20 years we're gonna have more Penguins, but I think it will always be Colin Farrell, who is, in my mind, now recognized as taking the Penguin from a cartoonish villain without much of a backstory, without much understanding, to someone who is very, very nuanced, similar to what I think Heath Ledger, did to the Joker. There's obviously been subsequent Jokers. You mentioned Joaquin Phoenix. I mean, I think the Joker really began with Heath Ledger, and I think the Penguin, to me at least, really began with what Colin Farrell did in this series.
Sure. I can understand. Shall we do a quick recap of the series?
Yeah, I mean, so it's 8 episodes. It's on HBO Max.
Yeah, The Penguin it's a direct sequel to Matt Reeves' The Batman.
2022, we saw him. Yes.
And it starts off almost immediately. I think like within a couple days of the Batman ending.
That's right.
So in The Batman, the major crime family boss was Carmine Falcone, played by John Turturro, and in this show, it was played by Mark Strong.
Yeah.
Oswald Cobblepot was a low-level gangster. He was a gangster, but he wasn't a boss.
Yeah,
right?
He started as a
worked for the
driver.
Yeah, that's right. He started off as a driver for the Falcons, and he was working his way up, but he was not he was nowhere near as powerful as the Penguin is traditionally known in the comic books.
Right.
So the series takes up there, and effectively, without going too deep into the nitty-gritty, it's a show about how Oswald Cobblepot becomes the new underworld boss of Gotham City from lowly driver.
That's right.
And what he does is he pits, because naturally what happens is Carmine Falcone's family is going to take over, the son and in this case, his nephew is going to take over. And we find out that his daughter wants to take over, but she's kind of pushed to the side because she's a girl, because she was institutionalized at Arkham. By the way, Kristen Milotti, fabulous job as Sophia. Really one of the best.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
That's how it starts. And then what he does is he pits the Carmines against their rival family.
The Maronis.
The Maronis, that's right.
Which is Clancy Brown, right?
Clancy Brown again. I mean, great role for him as well.
Yeah,
and
never not liked him.
He basically stages a gang war between the Falcons and the Maronis.
That's right.
And he gets all the other minor families around Gotham to unite under him. It turns out that they catch on to Cobblepot, and so they then decide to form up against him, and he uses his silver tongue to stab everyone else in the back, and he's able to kind of secure his position as the boss. Look, I'm being intentionally vague. This is one of the few shows where there aren't that many spoilers because, again, anyone who knows the Batman knows the Penguin and knows that he's the boss. Right?
Yeah.
He's an underworld boss. He doesn't have any superpowers, anything like that. But the quality of the show comes from the nitty-gritty. It comes from the small interactions, from the backstabbing, from the playing of against each other. It's very much a little bit like House of Cards, right? There's a lot of political back and forth.
Yeah.
And it's just a massive game of chess. And it turns out that he's playing checkers because some of the things that happen by luck or by circumstance. Not really, right? Like There's a fight between him and Maroni dies because of a heart attack, not because Cobblepot actually beats him.
Yeah.
But what does he do? He uses that to his advantage. He's fighting behind closed doors. He starts yelling out, "No, I'm not done with you yet," to make it seem like he's beating him physically himself, when really he didn't really do anything. That Maroni just died.
I mean, you're right in that. I mean, basically the show depicts the rise of the Penguin, right? And even I think it's subtle in the sense that it shows how he got the nickname the Penguin, right? I mean, he's not widely referred to as the Penguin. He's widely referred to as Oz, which is short for Oswald, right? But of course, he's kind of like in a mocking way known as the Penguin because he does have, apparently like some childhood physical deformity in one of his legs that causes him to limp a little bit. And since he's, kind of like a round, short shape, you could see like why people would say like, oh, he kind of like hobbles like a penguin. And I think that's really one of the great elements of the show and storytelling, which is they don't have to put it in our face, right? Like, I think another show would have like a schoolyard scene, like a flashback, and the kid saying, "Hey, you waddle like a penguin. Let's call him the Penguin," and laughing and taunting and kind of like finger pointing, right?
Right.
And that's supposed to be the aha, that's how he got the nickname, right? And I think that really intelligent storytelling is not putting that scene in our face and saying, this is exactly how it happened, but just the idea that, yeah, we get it. Like, he's not always referred to as a penguin, only kind of in a derogatory way. I think maybe maximum 4 times.
Yeah, that's right.
Maximum 4 times, right? I'd probably even say like 3, but maybe 4 times. And we're a smart audience. We get it. The show is called The Penguin. It's not a stretch to see why he's called the Penguin.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of the storytelling is you don't always have to shove everything in your audience's face and say, this is why, watch it and you'll understand. We can make some, logical assumptions for ourselves. And I think that's a lot of what this series is so good at, is really developing the depth of the characters that's so believable. So many shows are kind of wildly fantastic. You're like, I mean, okay, I'll go along with it for the sense of the story, but it's not really realistic. I thought this show was really, really good in the sense of having a viable storyline and sequence of events that I could buy into and believe in.
Or a superhero show, which this is, right?
Yes.
Because it's based on the Batman. It feels remarkably grounded.
Yeah.
It feels remarkably real.
Yeah.
And there are some things that seem a little comic book-y, right? Like the mushrooms and the drugs and things like that.
Yeah.
But just comic book-y enough, or in this case, just real enough that you're just like, yeah, I could believe that, if you didn't have any references to the Bat, or if the show weren't set in Gotham,
yeah,
I would still buy into this show and the premise of the show.
That's right.
So I thought that was what really made this this TV series work, is that it's a Batman show that really has A, nothing to do with the Batman, and B, is so grounded, similar to how the Batman was a very grounded take on a superhero.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Should we talk a little bit about casting and then maybe the ending and how everything kind of got tied together?
Yeah, please, because that's really where the crux of the show comes in.
Yeah. So first of all, the creator is someone named Lauren LaFranc, who I did not know previously. I have to say, like, I had not known that she was going to be so fantastic in this, but she had a fantastic creative vision, but the cast is what I'm so impressed by. We mentioned Colin Farrell as Oz, the Penguin, Kristen Milotti, we've seen in a lot of other things, and we've always loved her, right? We saw
Yeah.
her in the show with Palm
Palm
Springs.
Springs was the famous one that was
Yep.
the one I think a lot of people really got to know her.
Yeah.
But she played supporting or very minor roles in, like The Wolf of Wall Street and other shows like that, or How I Met Your Mother. But really, like How I Met Your Mother is when I was first introduced to Kristen Milotti. But Palm Springs is the one that made me say, like, yeah, she's the one. Like, absolutely, she's awesome.
There was another series that we saw her in. It was Made for Love. Do you remember that? I think I had that on a streamer skip.
Okay.
And remember, she.
Is that the one where they had the brain chip or the implant?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So Kristen Milotti, fantastic.
The mother, Deirdre O'Connell,
Yeah. Deidre
Frances
O'Connell
Cobb.
was fantastic.
Very good.
Yeah. I did not love the Vic character.
Oh, really? I thought he
Did
was
you?
actually the second best. Renzi Feliz was amazing.
Did not really get into the Vic
I thought he
character
was very good.
and surprised, but not disappointed. Are we giving spoiler alerts here?
Yeah.
I was surprised, but not disappointed when he was killed off at the end.
It took me by surprise, but then you have to remember and you have to realize that this is basically a TV series about a villain.
Yeah.
And up until that moment, one of the things that was there was that even though the Penguin is a bad guy, you kind of were rooting for him, right? Like you wanted him to succeed, and he's still a very likable person.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, I don't know if he's a likable person, but there's something charismatic about him
Absolutely.
that you're kind of attracted to him. It's how he's so plain speaking. He says what's on his mind, and usually he's got like a very grounded take on things,
And he's also able to, you're right, charismatic is the perfect word because he's able to convince people a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
That's what I mean when I say he's likable, in the sense that he is convincing, you root for him, you want him to succeed, you want him to win this gang war. And then you have to think and realize, oh, wait, man, this is supposed to be a bad guy. And so far, everything he's done is still kind of making me root for him. He's kind of like, a little bit like Walter White in that sense, right? You want him to win, you want him to be the victor at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And
that being said, though, Sophia Falcone, I think, is also very, and we haven't seen the last of her, obviously, but I think she's also a character that you can also feel very aligned with, right? She's a very sympathetic character.
Yeah.
I mean, Sophia Falcone, despite the narrative that Oz creates for her, she's actually been screwed almost more than anyone.
Oh, she's a victim.
I mean, we see
thing.
her backstory where she was a good and decent and honest, young girl, who was devastated by the death of her mother, kind of put a few things together that, some of the deaths of the working girls and her mother maybe were not suicides or were not accidents, right? She asked too many questions. And I mean, she was punished and suffered severely by going to the mental facility, right? And they showed kind of the first few days there where she was, really tested. We're not sure whether or not her doctor, Dr. Julian Rush, that's an interesting power dynamic. Is he manipulating her? Is she manipulating him? Where exactly does that relationship lead? But I think that she's a very, very sympathetic character who's been really like treated pretty rubbish her whole life. And it's not that she's out for revenge so much as she just wants out, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard when Oz says, "Hey, I'm the underdog and you're the, historic overlord." That's not necessarily true. She's kind of been the underdog who's been beaten down for almost the majority of her life as well.
Yeah.
But definitely we have not seen the last of her. And I think that's why I really wanted to finish those last 15 minutes of the final episode 8, because wow, I think really great ending that obviously now links her to Catwoman. And that's probably going to put a great spin on that storyline as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that ending was what made the show not just a good show, but it elevated to an all-time great.
I mean, it was a very MCU-ish ending, right? Like that's something that MCU would do, is how you've linked someone that you wasn't even mentioned at all, and now you've linked them and you're like, oh yeah, that makes
I
sense. And
forgot about her, yeah.
right.
I think Victor's death with Renzi Feliz's death
Yeah.
is what solidified how good this show was, and the instincts that Lauren LaFranc had was
Yeah.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
Because in that one scene, she turned this guy who was very likable and the one you were rooting for, everyone is against him now.
Yeah.
And when I say everyone, I mean the viewers, right? Because
Yeah.
that guy was like the heart of the show, was the soul of the show. Oz was kind of like the bumbling guy, and if it wasn't for Renzi Feliz's character, you're not so sure if he would have made it as far as he did. Oh, I mean, it's just brutal. And how he does it is so, he just strangles him and then goes so far as to take his money at the end, too. It's just absolutely brutal.
Well, I thought the hardest part was, you know, Vic was saying, you're like family.
Yeah,
And then you kind of saw Oz for a while where you're like, oh no, like I'm gonna have to do it after you said that. Like
yeah,
the interpretation I took from Oz was, I kind of wish you hadn't said that, but it's not gonna change my mind. I still know what I have to do. I'm not so convinced he really had to do it.
yeah,
I don't see that, it's not like Oz really had any secrets that he was trying to hide anymore, but
right.
so be it if you're a bad guy.
I mean, we saw in the flashbacks what Oz has done to his own brothers, right?
Maybe we should say, I think the flashbacks in this series were so good at really justifying why the characters were how they were, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you really saw, especially with Oz, you saw the relationship with his mother, which was kind of weird at first, and then you realized how that was born. I think the thing about his brothers was fantastic. Even Kristen, Maloti, and how she was treated in Arkham, and the issues with her father and her other family members. I think the flashbacks to provide, the context for why the characters were as they were, I thought was fantastic.
yeah.
Fantastic.
I can't say enough good things about the show because it did so many things right for me.
I mean, can we say that there's any shortfalls? I mean, it's been a long time since we've saw something in the Warner universe, right? It's been a long time since we've seen anything on HBO Plus, things that we haven't had any major critiques on or faults with. What could this show have done better? And I'm not sure if I can come up with anything other than just kind of like nitpicking on the margins, maybe. I mean, I love the Maroney family. I mean, Shara, right? Who
Yeah,
you saw with Christian from Expanse, right?
yeah,
What a lovely appearance by her. We saw Michael Kelly as Johnny VT,
yeah.
right? Fantastic. I don't feel like we got to know Dr. Julian Rush as well as we needed to. He was very mysterious, huh? From the mustache to like his relationship with Sophia. He was very, very, I think, kind of still one of the more mysterious people.
Sure. Again, I applaud the restraint. They could have very easily added other characters from the Arkham universe who were like other bad guys, like Dr. Zaz. They could have added
Yeah.
Harley Quinn. They could have done
Yeah.
so many, or like even a weird cameo with the Joker. Like they
Yeah.
could have done a ton of different things, and I'm so glad they didn't.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. You're right. There's a temptation to do like the kitchen sink approach, right? Where you
Yeah,
put everything in and you say, look, it's not enough. We got to add more, more, more. The restraint, I think, was really fantastic. And even there was no mention of Batman by name, and there was no reference until we saw the bat signal in the very last seconds.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you would have expected that they would have, even in the background TV, they would have had the news story about the Batman or something. They did not mention him whatsoever.
Yeah.
None of the characters said, like in a meeting in the underground or underworld, hey, what about the Batman? Or, the Batman killed one of our guys, or nothing at all. It was entirely independent.
And I'm kind of glad because I think that would have shifted the focus away back to the Batman.
I totally agree. I mean, I have some questions. I mean, I remember when we saw the Batman, which is 2022, and we really kind of wondered where that was going, right?
Yeah.
Because that was unlike the Christopher Nolan Batmans that were fun, popcorn eating, movies, we kind of knew where those were going, right? This new Batman, I think, really threw us a little bit for a loop because it was in some ways so nuanced, and we really liked that Batman. We didn't like the Bruce Wayne at all. And then there was some Catwoman, but Catwoman really was not at all developed as far as I remember, right?
No.
Even the Penguin, I don't really remember how much screen time he had. Do you?
In the Batman, very little because he was a minor character.
Yeah, he was a minor character. He owned the club. And as I recall, there was just kind of a scene where
there was the car chase scene. Yeah.
Yeah. I really could not remember much about it. Is there going to be a sequel of this?
So at the moment, The Batman is a miniseries. It's classified as a miniseries. Theoretically, and the way they ended it, the story is done, right? We got a lot of insight as to what makes Oswald Cobblepot tick. We got the rise, the origin story of him from childhood and his rise to power, right? And how he consolidates power in Gotham City.
Yeah.
So theoretically, his story is done. Having said that, it's so successful. It's been so critically acclaimed. Do they sit on it and just be like, well, we'll just wait for the second Batman movie to be made? I don't know. That's the first problem. The second problem is, and this is, I think, the bigger problem, I think now James Gunn has a real issue on his hands because the Batman isn't canon to his new DC universe.
Hold on. What does that mean?
It gets complicated real quick, but when James Gunn became the head of the DCU, he decided that the Batman with Robert Pattinson was not going to be considered a part of the new DC universe. And if they were going to continue making those movies, it would just be its own story that didn't work alongside the DC.
So what is the DC universe?
So that's going to be starting with the new Superman movie coming next year.
Okay.
They've discussed like 12 different movies that they plan on making over the next 10 years, whatever it is. There is a new Batman, but it's not Robert Pattinson.
It's a different person?
It's a different person. It's a different character. It's a different everything.
Who's the different person?
We don't know yet. He hasn't cast that. But you now you understand why this gets
is there going to be a new Wonder Woman as well?
A new Wonder Woman, new everything.
So they're rebooting
the entire universe is getting rebooted.
All right.
And that's what I mean by this is going to be a problem for James Gunn because these movies are genuinely good. And this series is genuinely good. How do you create the new universe? People like you and I are not going to get confused. But people who are going to get confused are, our parents are people who are aware of who Batman is, but maybe aren't aware of the comic universe so tightly. Or people who know who Robert Pattinson is and they'll go in to see the Batman movie expecting to see Robert Pattinson and it's somebody else. And they'll be like, what the hell? That's not the Batman I know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It gets very confusing. And this is what I was saying was that this is one of the critiques I had about James Gunn's universe is that he's decided that he's going to keep them running and he's going to keep them running in parallel, which I think is a grave mistake.
I don't think we need a second Pattinson Batman, but I think we should continue with Penguin as a series. I mean, I say that now because I just finished it this morning and I really enjoyed it so much. But I have to say, you kind of made it at the end, or you said it at the beginning. You weren't sure whether or not, this filled a void that you had in your life. I mean, if you're not going to put Batman in the second series, are you just going to show Catwoman, Sophia, and
Other bad
Oz?
guys. Yeah.
Because in theory, is Catwoman aligned with Batman? The answer is kind of yes, right?
Yeah, she's like an anti-hero.
Right. So her relationship with Sophia should, because they're half sisters, in theory, they should be aligned, right?
Theoretically, sure.
Although it's kind of interesting if Sophia would say, hey, like my sister Catwoman is a do-gooder. I'm her half sister. I'm a bad guy. And there's some complicated, interfamily good versus evil battle there as well. But again, that's not then a Penguin show. That's a Catwoman, Sophia Falcone
Exactly.
show.
This is what I mean. Like you see, just 2 minutes of discussing it between you and I, we're already starting to see where the pitfalls come in of running
Yeah.
a second universe that's in parallel.
Yeah.
Right. And this is this is the battle that James Gunn is going to have to fight now. Maybe not just internally with the Warner Brothers team, but also with like public perception.
Yeah. The interesting thing about MCU was back in the glory days of MCU, which I feel is gone, felt like there's always like two movies, and the storyline was kind of moving. For DCU, what's the last? I mean, again, we didn't see the Batman since 2022. That's a full 2 years ago, right?
Yeah. And that was also not a part of the DCU. The last DC universe, or at that time it was the DCEU, the DC Extended Universe. The last movie we saw was Aquaman, and before that was The Flash.
And even Aquaman, they said in advance of Aquaman, like, hey, we're just putting this out because we have to. Like, we're just continuing
and
Aquaman,
it was
right?
widely understood that Aquaman was the end of the DCE.
Yeah. Which, to be honest, I don't think Aquaman ever had a massive following. And you're right. Before Aquaman was it Shazam?
Flash, and before that was Black Adam. Yeah.
Yeah, the Flash, which was surrounded in so many controversies, right? We didn't even know if it was going to be released, which I thought was fantastic, by the way. I think you were a little bit less.
I was very much less enthused about it, but yes.
I mean, I did love it. I loved it mostly because of the Michael Keaton cameo and storyline, right? Yeah. So I mean, yes, if they're gonna start the DCU now and they're rebooting all the characters, that means I've got to get to know a new Superman. I've got to get to know a new Batman, probably. I've got to get to know a new Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Are they going to have Aquaman as a lead character? Or are they going to diminish Aquaman?
We don't know yet.
And who else? Cyborg?
I think Green Lantern is one of them.
Oh, Green Lantern's back.
I think so, but I'm not 100%.
Ryan Reynolds will have a field day with that in next Deadpool.
Yeah. But I'm not 100% sure. To be honest, until the next Superman comes out, everything is in the air. And, we don't know what's going on with the DC universe. We don't know, like, in terms of what their plans are. None of that is solidified yet.
Yeah. So what is James Gunn doing, like, on a daily basis?
Well, he just finished the filming of the Superman movie.
So Superman is done. It's coming out next summer?
I think so.
Have an open mind. Let's see what happens. But, I mean, Justice League, to me, first of all, never caught on as much as the Avengers, right? But, I mean, we've got to basically meet everybody all over again. So, I mean, if we're talking about just meeting Superman in 2025, we'll meet someone else in 2026, someone else in 2027. We're not going to have kind of like a Justice League until like 2028.
I don't know if we're going to get there.
I also don't. I mean, I don't know if there's a huge demand for it. I mean, if it's just because we've already seen the Avengers, right? We've already seen one Justice League. Are we just going to reboot that whole concept? Or, I mean, if James Gunn is going to do that same strategy, that seems like a 2018 strategy. that is finally going to come to fruition in 2028, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that seems like a very outdated strategy to just recreate something. I would hope that he's got a different configuration in mind.
I would hope so too. And I think that's what it was kind of going for, because when he initially showed his slate of the upcoming movies and TV series, like it just seemed so weird and random.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm gonna hold off on commenting only because I wouldn't mind seeing a really good DC universe that's all connected, because we still haven't seen that. Zack Snyder tried and failed, Joss Whedon tried and failed. All these guys really weren't able to succeed. I
Yeah.
would love to see that, but I think the problem is that Warner Brothers kind of keeps getting in its own way with it.
Yeah. Anyway, Penguin, HBO Max. We both give it a must subscribe, and I think we really stick by that, and we'd probably battle toe-to-toe anyone who told us otherwise.
Yeah. Finish this episode and then go out and watch it. It's very good.
Indeed. Pete, you want to give the YouTube and social media jazz where people can contact us before we sign off for the day?
Absolutely. Tweet at us at F&S Podcast. DM us on Instagram at Films and Stuff Podcast. But as always, the best thing you can do, leave a comment below, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell.
Could not have said it better myself. All right, listeners, thanks for tuning in. Pete, thank you as always. We will catch you next week on the next episode of the Films and Stuff Podcast. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Ethan. Thanks, everyone.
Bye now.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.